All right, it says we are live. Hey, everybody. Silverback here, and along with us today, we got Mr. Mike Woodland from Munitions Weapon Tactical. Mike, would you like to explain a little bit about MW Tactical?
Yes. So first of all, thank you for having me on to the show.
Munitions Weapon Tactical.
The best part
Mike,
about
would you like
it is that the enjoyment of teaching people the importance of firearms, laws, and everything, that's our job as instructors. But the most important part is nothing more than to get you familiar and understanding and stay safe so that you can eventually pass that on to somebody else or your children or, somewhere down that line of keeping the knowledge going. I'm a firm believer in what took place between World War I and World War II, whereas they had a sniper section, and at the end of the war, they dissolved the sniper section. Then when we went into World War II, they had to recreate the wheel. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing went forward into Vietnam. So lessons learned, which they stayed in place with it. But the same thing is, even though we look at children today, how they just sit indoors versus the older generations were sitting outdoors, playing all the time, getting more active with life because technology didn't take over at that time. Right. So through communication and a skill set, if we don't keep practicing it, we're going to lose it.
Oh, definitely. I mean, muscle memory is a big thing when it comes to just about any skill set, really. So how long have you been doing MW Tactical and been a firearms instructor?
Since 2014.
Right on.
So, like I said, I started MW Tactical when I was in the military. And like I said, I was at Fort Benning in 2014, came up with the idea of actually teaching people how to shoot. And the foresight of it was nothing more than a lot of instructors was using theatrics and they were just regurgitating what somebody else said. Mm-hmm. So we all know that old adage of, oh, if somebody breaks into my house and I pull out the shotgun, I rack it. That rack is just enough to let the bad guy know that I got a shotgun. They're going to run away because they don't want that problem. How true is that? Because like I said, if I broke into your house and there's a likely chance that you see me, wouldn't it make more sense for me to kind of take you out in a sense of speaking? You know what I'm saying? So me and my experience, I know your shotgun got how many rounds? Okay, I'll stick my foot out, stick my head out, wait till, and then by the time I can actually assault or do something, you know what I'm saying? You don't know the mindset of that criminal. That's pretty much what I'm getting at.
Right, exactly.
So
yeah, I mean, they even created an app where you can like shake your phone and it sounds like a shotgun. Like that's supposed to do something,
It's like one day I went to somebody's house and I guess I tripped a motion detector. I seen it, but I figured it was just like a door chime or something to let them know, like but it activated the automated dog barking. You know what I'm saying? So right. I'm sitting there like, okay, that didn't even sound real,
Hard to room clear with a shotgun as well as sticks out like a sore thumb. Yeah. Shotguns are pretty big and oafy.
Yeah.
So as far as it goes, so I see this question all the time, especially in groups and especially now with all the new gun owners out there. What is the best weapon for home defense? What do you think? What's your opinion on that?
Oh, man, you ready for this one? All right, so this right here is what I always tell everybody, and I always get into a big debate with a lot of my friends on this. And this is what I say. If I put down 3 firearms, a handgun, an AR, and then a shotgun, or even an AK platform, and if I put you under the clock right now and say you can grab any weapon to put 5 shots on a target in 3 seconds, go. What's the first one you're going to grab? Obviously,
I grab the AK.
You have already had training with the AK, so you're more comfortable with that AK, and you understand it probably to the point of I can be, sufficient with it. But for somebody who never touched an AR-15 or a shotgun, they're going to grab that handgun.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, the correct answer would be whatever you train with and whatever you feel more comfortable with.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the other question that's always buzzing around, again, same deal, especially with the new gun owners, is, oh well, what's the best handgun for everyday carry, or just in general, what's the best handgun for a beginner? What would your advice be on that?
What feels comfortable in your hand, and when you shoot it, how relaxed do you feel shooting that firearm?
I tell people, a lot of times, picking a firearm is like picking a nice pair of shoes. So you got to find something that's comfortable, that you feel good in, something you can move with, and something that you will enjoy wearing on your feet. So it's got to be the same way with a gun. It's got to feel comfortable in your hand, and you've got to enjoy shooting it. If either one of those is off, it's not a good gun for you.
Yeah. Another thing I always tell people, when you get a firearm, we already know, like a lot of companies, they make the grip straight, and some companies make it where it got the finger grooves and everything, but that kind of eliminates the size of hands once you got the finger grooves in there, because a lot of people try to make the grooves fit their hand. But I've always told people, if you go with the firearm like Walther, it's a funny looking grip with that hump that sticks out. But when you look at your hand, if you hold your hand out and then you kind of curve it in, you see like how you kind of got that little indentation right there. That's what that curve, it naturally fits in there, and it feels so relaxed and so comfortable. Well, I can't say that for everybody, but at least for me.
So my wife likes her Walthers, so
yeah, I'm gonna give it a try, and whatever works out for you. Because even my competition gun, it on the back strap of it, it's a Chile grip, but on the back side of the strap, it actually has that indentation curve for the hand, and it feels so good.
That is a very true statement from Kingpin. He said Hollywood filmmakers said that the racking of a gun in a movie is all for that sound and the feeling. In real life, you better be chambered.
Yeah, that's very true. But also, well, we got to remember too, a lot of movies, like your handgun holds 18 rounds. In the movies, they take out 42 people with that one magazine inserted. Right. You got to remember, if it holds 18 rounds, on that 19th pull on the trigger, you're going to hear that click. So,
the thing that always gets me is in movies, and since I've become a gun guy and gotten into guns a whole lot, it's kind of ruined some movies for me, or just aspects of certain movies, because they pull out a gun and you hear that, like the hammers being cocked back every time, or like the slides being racked. I'm just like, why is it whenever they pull it out, it makes that noise? Or if they do this, they already have it out, but they go like this to point it at the bad guy, and it makes that same sound. I'm like, guns don't do that in real life. I can't believe it.
Other thing, not about guns, but it's more about cars. If you watch a car, and even if the car has it's a stick shift, and they got 6 gears.
Yeah. Right.
In the movie, they're going through about 9 to 10 shifts. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? I want that car.
Yeah. It's like a big rig with an 18-speed transmission,
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's your background? What got you into becoming a firearms trainer?
All right. So the short story of the true story of what took place with me was, when I was in the military, I was denied entry into the sniper section. My first duty station, it was a blind audition to go to the sniper section. And ever since then, I made it a point, whatever unit I went into, I was going to be the better shooter. And of course, that drive stuck with me after the military. And here I am now doing competition and passing the knowledge on to everybody.
Right on. So do you just teach handgun classes, or what kind of classes do you teach? Rifle, everything, or?
I teach everything, man. Handgun, rifle, CQB, precision, everything I'm familiar with, I'm willing to pass that knowledge on to anybody who's willing to accept it.
Right. So in this day and age, is your business really booming with a lot of the new gun owners coming on board? I mean, how's that working out? Getting a lot of people coming in for actual physical training, or?
There's been an influx of people wanting to get their CWP, but my concentration has been more on competition shooting. So pretty much the team handles all the training aspect that I'm doing right now, so I can focus more on the competition aspect of things.
Right on. So you have more than just yourself working at MW Tactical?
Yeah, I mean, but like I said, I don't see anything from it. Everything we do, it's a revolving door. So whatever you pay, it goes to something else. You know what I'm saying? So like we don't profit off of anything.
Oh, right on. That's cool.
Mhm.
So what does your profit go towards? I mean, you giving like charity for the community? How's that working?
Yeah, so if you go to the website and you purchase a shirt, the proceeds for that goes to the American Cancer Society.
Nice.
And then like if you pay for a class, that goes into a bucket for somebody who would like to get training who can't afford training, and they do like their extensive background checks on that. So it's like a revolving door. It's
That's
something
nice, man.
kind of one
That's
hand the other hand. That's how we try to formulate it.
right. That's excellent, man. I like that. That's a very thoughtful for sure. And it's definitely a good way to get back to people for sure.
Yeah.
So what branch of the military were you in?
I was in the Army. I was in the Army for actually 22 years to be exact. So for me,
You don't look old enough to have been in the military for 22 years.
everybody said that. But what I actually ended up doing, my original plan was to only do 3 years in the military. And I only joined the military to get out of Virginia. That was the only reason I joined the military. And my first duty station outside of going to basic training at Fort Benning was Colorado. So if I would have gotten out of the Army, it would have been in Colorado. But the only reason I decided to stay in because I didn't have the proper guidance, So I just bought a new car. I figured if I got out the military, what I'm going to do for work. I knew I wasn't going to work at McDonald's. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and stay in the military. And then before I knew it, 3 years went to 7 years. Then it went to 10 years. And once I hit the 10-year mark, I was like, I already did 10 years. I can do another 10. And at least I get a check for the rest of my life, once you retire. So, like I said, 22 years later, went ahead, completed it. And now I'm at the Army and just doing stuff I want to do right now in life.
Right on. Yeah, that's good, man. My uncle, he joined the Air Force when he was 18, and he went all the way through. I think he spent 25 years in the Air Force. He was going to sign on to get late retirement because he just wanted to keep serving because he didn't know anything else. But so his actual commander said to him, he said, take your retirement. We'll put your pension on hold. You come back to work for us as a civilian. You'll still get all the same benefits and better pay. And he did that until up till about a couple of years ago, and then he took full retirement. Finally.
Nice. One thing I can say is being in the military, it can be addictive, especially if you're somebody who's competitive and you love your job. For me, the hardest part was slowing down. I did not know how to slow down because I was in the infantry. When I joined the military, from day one, it was go, 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 go. Now, when I'm about to retire, you're telling me, hey, stop, sit down, relax. I don't know how to do that, right? And it didn't formulate with me on how to slow down until last year, literally last year. So right now, I'm at that point in life, whereas even though I see something or do something I really want to do, I'm like, I got to get this. I got to do this. Now, when I'm laying in bed at night, I'm starting to think, man, hold on, I ain't got nothing to prove to nobody. Just enjoy life. Do whatever feels natural and comfortable to you and have fun. So that's where I'm at with it right now.
Right on. Yeah. When you're used to always moving and grooving and everything, it is hard to just let it go and get into the laid back section. I mean, I was like that when I was younger too, man. I mean, always on the go. I did martial arts for a long time, and the people always used to like people. If I meet run into people from high school and they see me now. I'm a lot more laid back than I was back then. Everybody's like, man, you used to be so intense. What happened? I grew up, man. I had a family, it'll slow you down. you know?
I can't relate. I can't relate.
So we got some people out there. Let's give some shout outs to some people. We got Lever Guns 50 out there, Mario Mosen, Kingpin, Target One TV. I am 8043. I think there was somebody else in there, Joshua Brandenburg. I hope everybody's doing good tonight. Yep, we got Banana. So, in the world today, so how do you take this whole COVID thing?
I think the COVID situation, from the media standpoint, they're putting too much into it to cause a state of panic.
Right.
Now, from a reality standpoint, I believe COVID is real. I just don't believe it's as intense as they're making it. So when you're watching it, we got over 50,000 cases today. Georgia now has 80,000 cases of COVID. And the thing that they're not telling people is, whenever you go to the hospital, regardless of what you go to the hospital for, it's COVID related.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? So I ended up going to the hospital a couple weeks ago. All right. And it was nothing more than I thought I broke my hand. But when you look at the paperwork on their end, it's going to be, you came into the emergency room, COVID. You know what I'm saying? And think about all the people that passed away from March until now, right? It could have been a legit heart attack.
Right.
It's stamped as COVID. It could have been in a car accident, COVID. So I think it's an overplay. I think it was a political game for whatever reason. I think it was something that took its own form of teeth, and it just took its own course to where we are today. And I'm pretty sure after the election, it's going to magically clear up, and then we're just going to kind of, okay, you don't have to wear a mask no more unless you want to, and I think that's how it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some stuff that's happened in some of the other countries, like take Japan, for instance. They came out of this whole thing with only 850 cases of actual COVID, right? So what is and they're a pretty tight group over there. I mean, they don't have as big of a country as we have, yes, but per capita, I guess, and especially in their city areas, they probably have a lot more people bunched together than we do in our city areas. So, I mean, it kind of leads you to think, like you were saying, is this been completely politically driven?
I can't honestly say that because I'm not a political type guy. And one thing I do to an extent, I won't talk political and religion openly. You know what I'm saying? And if I talk about it, it's very vague. So it's like, it can go either way, and I'll let you make the decision of whatever I just said, But the downside to it is even when you turn around and you look at it, the scare of what's taking place. What was the time left for them to come up with a cure for polio when it first happened? All right. What was the time left for them to even come up with a real treatment for HIV? And you're telling me okay, we went on lockdown in March, and you're telling me you already have some form of a vaccination right now? I don't believe that. Right. I don't believe that. And we don't even have the cure for the common cold.
Right.
So what if this is something that's like the cold, whereas, we don't have a cure for it. It's just something that might die on its own, but then there's a possibility it could come back, But just like anything else, it can affect some people in different ways. It's just a matter of truly anticipating the areas of what it's really hitting. Because right now, whatever they're putting out statistic-wise, it's not real. And I don't honestly believe a mask is going to slow anything down either.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like Target One TV saying he said he's heard people that went to the doctors but never got tested for it and have gotten called saying that they have it. And that there's an explanation for that, and it's the way that they have their testing set up. Everybody's assigned a number that goes there that day for testing, and say if you're number 32 in line and you decide, well, okay, it's been too long, I got to go because I got things to do, you leave, and now number 33 steps up in line and it's actually 32. But because you're registered as 32, you get the phone call saying that you have it. So there's a big screw up with all that that's going on too. So
yeah, from what I understand also is they got like 2 or 3 different versions of the test, but one of them they was like, okay, this isn't really a test because it brought up a positive reading for like cooking oil or something like that. And,
yeah.
And I was like, okay, like when I went to the emergency room, they asked me if I wanted to get tested. And I was like, yeah, I'll get tested. Man, they stuck that swab thing, man. So I was like, man, you touch my brain. What's going on? Man? My eyes getting closed. This ain't right. You know?
Yeah, I've seen some people get that test and they got to put it up there far enough to get into the sinus cavity. Right. And trust me, I know years ago, I had a big sinus issue going on, and they had to stick some it was like some kind of scope up in there so they could take a look at it. Oh my God, I've never felt anything like that before in my life. And you hear this pop when it gets in there too, and you're like, oh my God, and you just want to start tearing up, you know?
It was painful, but they actually gave me a call back like 2 weeks later, and they was like, oh yeah, we just called about your COVID test. Everything came back. You're good. You're okay. Nothing came up.
Yeah, there's been a lot of false positives. The COVID tests, and they've stated this several times, that they only have a 60% accuracy rate. So
yeah, so like I said, it goes back to my original saying, COVID hit us. We didn't have anything prepared for it because I read something not too long ago when it was the H1N1. I was a drill sergeant at that time. And whatever doctor at the CDC stated something like they need to prepare for COVID in case it happens so we can actually have a cure for it when it hits. And whoever said, like, don't worry about it. We'll deal with it when it happens. So I remember reading something. That's just the gist of what I read, not verbatim. So
yeah, I mean, and they're doing a lot of antibody tests and everything too. And I believe, for me, that herd immunity with this thing is really a thing. I've read these articles talking about how, they believe that you could be reinfected with it, but they're not 100% positive. They say there's been a few cases of somebody, being reinfected with it, but who knows if that's true or if that's just more propaganda, So, but if we can build antibodies to this, our body will remember and will fight back again if you do get reinfected, and it'll take care of it, just like it took care of it the first time. Sure, it might have taken longer the first time to get rid of it, but the second time around, because your body's already had it and had chance to build up these antibodies, it's going to attack it a lot faster. Now, those antibodies go and lie dormant, which they've said this in the studies, and it does it with anything that you've been exposed to. So, but they do come back. It's kind of like muscle memory. So when you train, that's your body training and remembering. But their whole thing with the vaccine, especially in these early stages, is saying, well, it's just going to help your antibodies remember better. So, I don't know, what to think about that either. I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. If we already can develop the antibodies, why do we need a vaccine?
Yeah, exactly. So the one thing about, like you said, the medical stuff, you take anything right now for COVID, you're a guinea pig. That's all it is. You're just being a guinea pig for.
Right. So anybody knows how COVID cleared up during the rioting, then magically popped back up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I noticed is between, I go to Georgia, I'm in South Carolina, and I go to North Carolina a lot. And between the three places, it's different with the mask stuff. So I go to Georgia and I kind of look at people and kind of gauge their reaction, because half the time I put a mask on, sometimes I just pull it up under my chin or I just pull it up over my mouth. My nose is still out, and but here in South Carolina, they will stop you. Hey, stop! You got to put a mask on before you come in the door. Okay, cool. Yeah. I do the same thing. But they also have a guideline. If you were to mention like you have health complications, you don't have to prove it. You can just say it, and they're supposed to leave you alone, and you're good. Right. And when all this came out, it was only one person that said something to me about my nose being out from the mask, and that was at a shooting match when I was going to register for the match. Right. And I was just like, okay, cool. We was just up in North Carolina earlier today for the North Carolina State match for USPSA, and literally we was walking in stores and restaurants like it was nothing. We went to a restaurant last night, and it literally had a sign on the door: keep a mask on until you're seated. But here in South Carolina, you keep a mask on in the restaurant until your food is brought out to you. So how do you beat that? Yeah, get an appetizer.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of doing the same thing here in Virginia. That's where I'm at. But I haven't worn a mask once. I wore a mask because I had to go to the doctor, so they required you to wear a mask. I wore a mask for the 15 minutes I was at the doctor's office because I had to go see the doctor. So I respected that for that, just because I had to go see the doctor, But other than that, I have not worn a mask once. They tried to get me to wear one time when I was going into a Walmart, and I said, that's not happening. I'm not doing it. I don't believe this. I believe it's real, but I don't believe it's anywhere near what they're saying it is. And I just went on about my business, and nobody stopped me. I mean, there is a lot more majority of people you see that's wearing them, and you'll see they're wearing them. They're either just hanging off their ear or tucked under their chin, or just kind of like hanging off their face, half their mouth's hanging out. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't see what the point is.
When I walk around, and when I walk around like that, like I was in Lowe's, was it last week, the week before last? Me and my girlfriend was walking around, and she doesn't really pay attention to like how people like, I read body language when I'm out in public, and she doesn't really pay attention. But I noticed how, because we both had our noses out, and people was like kind of giving the dirty look, and I give like, well, okay, I can look back too,
right?
Like, but and I even told a couple people the only reason I put a mask on is so you won't freak out and get all irate over nothing, So it's kind of like to keep the peace. I mean, it is what it is, but
right. That was happening a lot at the beginning of this whole thing, especially when the mask mandates started. Yeah. But it's not happening as much anymore. I think people are starting to realize, especially because the CDC keeps backtracking on all the things that they're saying. The World Health Organization has already said that somebody is asymptomatic, it's rare for them to actually spread it to somebody. And now the whole thing with the surfaces, that's kind of like gone by the wayside too, So the more and more, I guess, we're learning about this, and the more stuff that's coming out, people are starting to kind of open up a little bit. But you also have, again, the political side of things where the politicians are the ones really trying to enforce all these rules, more so than just normal people buying into the whole thing.
Yeah, and I've said this, and I've said this on more than one occasion. I believe the media use of talking about COVID was nothing more than to scare people to stay home And once the economy started shutting down, then it was like, oh, well, hold on, we bit off more than we can chew. How can we rebound off of this? And then, of course, the mask. So another thing that I find funny is when you see people walking around with the mask and then they put the gloves on.
Yep.
You know, once again, me and my girlfriend was at the gas station the other day, and we were just talking. It was like a little inside joke between us. And I was like, this lady did not realize she just contaminated all her stuff.
Right.
She got out of her car, put on blue latex gloves, touched the keypad, had her keys in her hand with the gloves, the ATM card with those same gloves, and after she finished pumping the gas, she took the gloves off, put the keys back in her hand, the ATM card back in her hand, and got in her car. Like, okay, you realize you just recontaminated everything because you didn't wipe it down in the first place. So
right. Well, that's the other thing too, and I seen a post on this, and it made me giggle because you know how they've been putting the glass up at like the cash registers and stuff. Well, you're putting all your food down on the conveyor belt, and then that person, the cashier, is over there with their bare hands grabbing all your stuff and touching it, but yet that glass is magically supposed to protect both of you guys from anything that's going on, especially after you've touched the stuff and put it on the conveyor belt, or and other people have touched it. So
it's crazy. And it's nothing more than just something to say, because if the officials say it, oh, it's real, we gotta do it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, okay, if it was really real or that big of a scare as they said it was, back in March, the airlines would have shut down.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's how I was like, okay, this isn't as real as they're saying it is. It's real, but it's not on the scale of what they're claiming it to be.
Right. I think on the political side of things, especially given the times that we're in right now, I think it was just more or less they wanted to see who would fall in line.
Well, like I said, for me, I just looked at it more as a scare tactic to gauge, like you said, to fall in line, but gauge, okay, this is what we can get away with. This is what we're not going to touch this side of the fence, but we can get away with this. So let's run with it.
Right. So how about all this rioting and stuff that's going on? What do you think about that?
Oh, man. So I just had this conversation with a friend of mine, and he's a little bit younger. He really hasn't done anything in life. And like I stated it, at the beginning, it was enough to capture attention. Right now, it's all about nothing more than division. Somebody stated something to me not too long ago that there's people paying people to go to other areas to do the propaganda and destroying and all that. Right. But I was like, man, this is crazy. But if you really want to get somebody's attention, all the acts that took place in the 50s and 60s, all that's been done. That stuff doesn't work today. Right. You know what I'm saying? So we can sit right here and say, hey, we're going to march on Washington. We're going to do this for the Second Amendment. It's falling on deaf ears. Right. If you really want to get somebody's attention, stop spending money with an organization. Mm-hmm. Now they're willing to talk now. Okay, what can we do to appease you? Because we need that money coming back in. Right. So that's one thing you can do to get people's attention. Going around destroying property and taking over cities and canceling out the police force, that doesn't solve anything. No,
it definitely doesn't. I think a lot of it is opportunists, quite honestly, trying to take advantage of a situation to turn around for their agenda,
like I said, it was just like I saw something on the news and they said something like they was chasing a group of people, and it was like Black Lives Matter protests that turned radical. And then when the cops caught the people, they took their mask off. Right now, these people are sitting there looking like, "Oh, I'm busted now. But were they somebody who was paid to do that, or they were just doing it because they thought it would be fun, or because I've seen other people going around, hey, don't do this. This isn't what, this means. This isn't what this is supposed to mean. This is what we're trying to get at, So it's one of those type things, whereas, and I'm not saying this to be cruel or anything or demean anybody, but if somebody was to say something of racial intent, more than likely they didn't know they was racist, because how you was raised, if your parents said it, that's the golden rule, But now that same thing can happen if you got jumped by a certain group of people, or, you was taken advantage of by a certain group of people, So even when you turn around and you look at it, the division process is not working. All right. And I proved to somebody the other day, because they was like, hey, we need these laws. We need these laws. All the laws on the books right now is straight across the board for equality. What the problem is the court system. That's what the problem is. All the laws is right there for equality. We just got to change the court system and the views, So think about it. A lot of these judges that are sitting on these court benches are people that grew up in what I won't consider an equal way of life. You know what I'm saying? So what can we do? Well, I think real change is not going to happen until my daughter is probably in her 30s or 40s. And she's 6 years old right now. So I think that's when change is going to start making its way in.
Right. And a lot of those people that you're talking about have been in those positions for so long too, they're just out of touch, out of date. So maybe it's time for some fresh new faces or something to happen. Like you said, you got to hit them where it hurts. You got to hit them at the polls. You got to hit them at their wallet, and that's the only way they're going to start to see what's happening, and they're going to actually think about it. Oh, well, why did I get voted out? Why aren't they spending money with me? Why am I not making my money? What's happening there? But with these people having been in their positions for as long as they have, it's like they've grown so comfortable with the fact of knowing that they can do things and there's always going to be people backing them up.
Right.
No matter what they do, and that's a big problem. I'm in agreement with a lot of term limits on things as well. So, that I think will make a big change if we can manage to make that happen. But
yeah, I said the same thing also. If the president have term limits, I think Congress and Senate needs term limits as well.
Right.
There are a lot of people from the civil rights era that are still congressmen and senators right now. So when you look at these career politicians who've been in politics for over 50 years, in the same seat for over 50 years, are they more of the problem or what? Because it's easy to get into politics. It's easier to sit in that seat if nobody's running against you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Especially if people are not coming out to vote. Well, you're already in the seat. Hey, just go and stay there. We'll just keep going.
Right. And that happens a lot. and egos get built off that. Like, oh yeah, I keep running unopposed. I must be doing such a great job, or I'm so formidable that nobody wants to run against me. So that in turn will grow their heads, and that's how warlords are born, basically.
Well, that's how the division is started also.
Yep.
So both the best of both worlds. So
right. Kingpin brings up a good point. He says, what kind of change are you looking for?
Yeah, and it's like I told him in the chat. It was just the hypothetical off the question that was asked. So to narrow it down across the board, just equality. Just keep it fair across the board. So if you go to court for a speeding ticket, or you go to court for killing somebody, whatever they propose for you, it should be the same for me. right? It shouldn't be when they look at me, I get a stricter term, a harsher term versus you, especially if we did the same crime.
Yeah, it's the whole judging the book by its cover type of thing, you know.
Exactly.
And to me, stereotypes, and that's a big stereotype right there. To me, I think stereotypes were created as a form of control, because if you can get a group of people to believe in a stereotype and to fall into it, you just set them up and put them in a trap.
Yeah, that's all it is. That's all it is. But it's easy to sway the masses to your favoritism off stereotype as well.
Right. Yep. And you see it all the time. Yep, you see it a lot. What you want and work toward that and be the change. That's right. Yep.
That's it right there. Kingpin is on top of it.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. I like Kingpin. He always brings up a lot of good topics, and he makes you think. Anytime he puts out a video, he definitely makes you think about what he's talking about, for sure. So now we got all that out of the way. I can't remember what I was about to say.
We got all night.
Yep, we got all night. Let's see. Says, I agree there should be equal charges no matter who you are or what successes you have accomplished. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that was brings up another conversation I had on the range today, whereas something happened to me on the range and everybody was trying to fight for me to get a reshoot, and I was more like, hey, keep it within the rules. Just because you deemed it as being okay, I should have got a reshoot doesn't technically mean I should have got that reshoot. So keep it within the rule book. And the guy that was talking to me, he was more like, so if a celebrity was to come here and shoot, and I was like, yeah, if it was somebody of a higher caliber, like that's recognized, like Shane Coley or Max Michelle, and if they slipped on a rock or something, they just happened to, hey, that rock shouldn't have been there, and I slipped, right? But then somebody who nobody knows about on social media or whatever, slip on that same rock, Max Michelle or Shane Coley more than likely will get the reshoot, versus the other person was like, well, it's part of the game. It doesn't say anything in the rules about it, all right, because of their popularity status, and they don't want to be deemed as a bad guy in that pro's eyes, especially when they got the bigger companies backing them. So it goes back into that whole money is influence, in a sense of speaking.
Yep. So Kingpin wants to know if you're still doing the martial arts training for the police.
That actually ended back in March. So what we actually did was once we finished collecting up the money, we gave all the money to the gym. And then instead of bringing in new officers, because we did bring in one officer, and they only did 1 week of training, and that was it. They never came back to the gym again. So what we did was we took all that money and then divvied it up for all the police officers that were already coming to the gym. And it just took off a little bit off of their monthly payment, whatever it was.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You still have a good amount of them showing up and training every day or every week?
The gym that I go to for as jiu-jitsu, I want to say it was like 60 police officers there. Yeah. That's what I counted when I first got there. And like, of course, I'm just looking at people and asking questions. And it was like 60 police officers overall. And I can't even tell you how many people actually come to the gym, because there's more children that do the children classes than adults. So I didn't even count the children, because I don't even go to the hours of the children's class. So, but out of all the adults that were there, that I actually interact with and everything, it was 60. So if you think about it, it was like, what was it, $1,800 or $3,000? Whatever it was that we came up with, all that went to those officers and divvied up equally. And I know my payments were something like $100 a month. Right. And if you got $1,800 and there were 60 of us, man, that's like what, 2 months of free training for you?
Right on.
So
Target One TV wants to know if you do any training classes in South Carolina.
yes, I do. If you actually go to the website, m-wtactical.com, you'll see everything that we offer as far as training, and then the actual class dates if you click on the register tab. So check it out. Tell me what you think. Hit me up if you want to come up, and if you just want some private training or some one-on-one time on the range. Like I said, give me a call, give me an email. All the information is on the website.
Yeah, Steve D does bring up a good point. He says for a long time there were equal attitude about privilege. Think about the line from Creedence Clearwater Revival, "I ain't no senator's son."
Yeah. You have it.
Never became a 2A celebrity. He's been a grounded man. Yeah, so you got some fans out there, man.
Yeah, and that was the one thing about it was like people that met me at SHOT Show and NRA, as soon as I pick up the, oh, you're like that, hey, stop. I'm human. I'm a man just like you, a man. I put my pants on just like you. Only difference is I'm just more in front of the camera than you are. Right. And then at the same time, like people around here, when they recognize me, I'll invite them just to hang out with me or whatever, just to, break the tension. So, because I don't like for people to put me on a status like that. Right. Because I'm more like, hey, I'm human just like you. I'm learning just like you. So let's all have fun together. Like, let's just learn and have fun.
Yeah. I mean, hey, all you're doing why you're more in front of the camera is because you have a message you want to spread. And, it's a good message you want to get out there. So, I mean, not everybody is the kind of person that will get in front of a camera, even though they have a message they want to put out there, but they're not going to, some people just don't have what it takes, I guess, or maybe the drive to get out there and do what you're doing.
The drive just comes from your love of whatever it can be. If you like to build engines, your drive might be, let me build an engine so this guy can race it, and I'm helping him live his dream. At the same point, I'm doing my passion. How many people actually build firearms, but they don't shoot them, they just build them. Even think about the M1 Garand. The Mr. Garand, he was actually convicted of capital murder, like murder one or something like that. He couldn't fire a firearm, but he actually built the firearm. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about passion and knowledge.
Yeah. So Warsaw Patriot, he said he knows you've been a big fan of the AR platform. Have you ever been familiar with the AK platform, and have you ever trained anyone with the AK over an AR?
No, that's the one platform I don't mess with the rifle, and I'm not a big fan of the AK platform. I know how to take it apart, and I've shot one before because we had to learn about it, going over to Iraq and Afghanistan. But the AK is part of the reason why I lost the hearing, part of my hearing, So outside of that, I don't really have anything against it. It's just something that's just not for me. I agree with it is a solid operating machine, tool, but it's just not for me.
Yep, I know what you mean. I had Brandon Herrera on the show, I don't know, some months ago, and I was talking to him about, because he's the AK guy. So I was like, so what do you think about the SKS? He's like, oh, I don't like the SKS. He just had an experience where something came up and hit him in the eye, and he just never wanted to play with one ever again and because of it. Yeah. There isn't anybody in this world any better than the other. We are all the same. We all may not have the same things, but we are the same. Yep. That's right. We're all flesh and blood, skin and bone. When it comes down to it, we might look different on the outside, but you strip that skin off, it's all the same.
Yep, very true.
Yeah. Oh, I love the SKS too, man. I wish I could have one of every version.
There was a few side competitions I've done. Like, have you ever heard of Cola Warriors? Oh man, so Cola Warriors is kind of fun, but it's challenging at the same time. So you got to go through like a physical portion at the beginning.
Yes.
The next portion is you got to strip down a firearm. And every time I've done a Cola Warriors, it was always an SKS, But as you're doing it, you're eating like these little Peeps candy. And then you got to run like a quarter of a mile to the firing range. And then you got to shoot like whatever, a handgun and a rifle at whatever distance. It wasn't over 200 yards. So the handgun was like 50 yards. The rifle was out to 200 yards. And then by the time you finish the rifle, you got to drink like 72 ounces of carbonated drink, right?
Wow.
Carbonated drink of your choosing. That they don't pick it; it's of your choosing. Right. And then, of course, when you're sitting there drinking it, most people throw it back up. But you got to drink all the drink before you can throw it back up. Because if you throw it up, you got to start all over again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's how that goes. But it's called Cola Warriors, and it's pretty interesting. I did it because one of my buddies here in Columbia, South Carolina, he owns CAE Transfers. He invited me to it, and he was talking to me about that for like 6-7 months. And every time we talk, hey, man, you need to do Cola Wars. You need to do Cola Wars. I'm like, Johnny, I don't drink soda like that, man.
Right.
I don't even think I can make it through a half a cup of Coke. Come on, man. So actually, I went down there and I did it, and actually drank all the soda. I didn't Earl, but I felt jacked up after that. So I think I did that quarter of a mile run in something like 2 minutes or something. I was booking, but you got to remember before that you were eating Peeps, so it was already
right
in your stomach, and I was like, oh man, it was horrible. It was horrible.
So you had to eat all that marshmallow stuff before you drank the cola. Yeah. Oh my God, you must have felt so bloated after all that.
Man, I'm telling you, that's how it went. So the one that I did, it was like an obstacle course you had to do at the beginning. So when they said begin, it was like the overhead bars, but it had the loose bar and you had to move it to the next notch. Right. So you had to do that like about 8 times before you get off, because it was only a short beam. So you're moving between the 8 slots. And if you fall off or if you don't make it to the end, you got to start over again. The next thing was you have to climb this rope and then touch the top of it, come down on that one. And then it was like this inverted bar. And like you literally had to take your body and weave up it like that. Then the next one was you had to throw like a beer keg over 3 sets of bars. So the first one was like 6 feet tall. The next one was 12 feet. And then the last one was like 15. And literally they were empty though. You had to throw them over. And then it was like a balance bar you had to put on your shoulder, but the bricks was different heights. Like left side was like that high. The right side was like that high. So you're balancing on a beam with this bar on it. Once you get through all that, the physical aspect, I was good on that. But now when I got to the SKS portion, I was like, okay, I'm going to eat the Peeps while I do this. So as they're reading, what I had to do, I'm sitting there throwing the Peeps in my mouth. I take apart the SKS, I throw another one in. It's like a pack of like 6 of these little Peeps. So when I'm putting it back together, I'm on the last one. I throw it in. And I was like, can I take off? And they was like, you take off after you swallow. I went ahead and I swallowed the Peeps down. I just took off. Wow. And I'm running. Man, by the time I touched my handgun, I was like, yo, that wasn't a good idea. I'm sitting there, I'm shooting. I'm hitting the targets. Right. I was like, all right, cool. I got a good low time, so I know I'm at least in the top 10. And then when I was drinking the soda, I went ahead and I downed it. And right when I felt like I had to throw up, nothing came up. And I was like, I'm good. And then the 4-wheeler, when it came by, they was like, hey, we can give you a ride back over to the tents. I was like, I'm going to walk. I'm good.
Gotta walk it off, right?
I walked off, and I was good after that. I felt a little dizzy after the fact. But at the same time, it was an SKS that they used to take apart that. So that was the moral of that story.
So Kingpin wants to know which firearms event, gun show, shot show, etc. are you looking forward to most in 2021?
Actually, the one that I'm really looking forward to is NRA and USCCA. And the reason why I like those more is mainly because you get to interact more with the people. So the same people that follow me on social media, those are the same people that like I will see and I'll talk to them, take pictures. At SHOT Show, I mean, you don't get to interact with the people, but you're doing more interaction with business. So I really don't like doing the business stuff. I understand in order for me to do what I have to do, I have to do business, but it is what it is. But the shows that I like to do the most are NRA and USCCA.
Right on. So Warsaw Patriot, I've seen him ask a couple times. He wants to know if you're a fan of the ACR or the SCAR or even a CZ Brin 805 rifle.
I will go more with the SCAR over the selections that he just put up there. But if you was to actually give him my choice out of all those platforms and those same classes, it would be the AR-15, and then as far as long rifle, it would be a Remington 700.
Right on. So you said you were trying out for the sniper team. So what would be your favorite sniper type rifle? Would that be the Remington 700?
The 700. Right now, I would say it would be the Ruger precision rifle because that joker is straight smooth. Savage got one also, not like the Ruger, but my buddy had one. I'm not familiar with Savage, but whatever he had, it did mimic the Remington 700, but it was nice. The only reason I wouldn't use a Ruger like for like a sniper competition or a long range competition, especially if I have to pick it up and run, is because of the fact it is kind of bulky.
So you would take a Barrett 50 cal to one of those then?
You can carry it. I'll shoot it. That is heavy right there.
That is a big beast of a rifle.
Yes. And I was going to buy one. I had just got back from Iraq the second time, and I was going to go buy one. And the only thing that turned me away was the ammunition was $5 a round. That was the only thing that turned me away from it. I was like, yeah, I know enough people who got one that I can call and say, let me shoot it. But I'm glad I didn't purchase one because around here, you couldn't go to a range and shoot one. No. It literally would tear up the range. So.
I mean, do you have any outdoor ranges out there that have 1,000+ yards or anything like that? Or
there's one here called the Sawmill. There's another one, I think it's called GTI, and both of those have over 1,000-yard ranges. We have Panteo Studios range here also. Like if you look at the videos with all the instructors and everything, Panteo handles those videos, but their range is here in Columbia, South Carolina, and theirs only go out to 600. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, we don't have any in Virginia really that go out that far either. When I went up to Ohio to Thunder Valley Precision, we were able to shoot the 50 out there, but they also have a mile range, and I mean that place is beautiful, man. It's nice and peaceful. It's out in the middle of nowhere. We had a nice time shooting out there.
There's a guy who lives in Virginia. I'm not certain if he still teaches. He was an older guy that will teach people precision marksmanship. I think he was a sniper in the Vietnam era, but I'm not certain if he's still teaching right now. So he has all this land there in Virginia, and I want to say it was on the west side of Richmond. But like I said, he had like a lot of land and everything, and you can go out there, and I think you could shoot at least a mile on his property as well.
Nice. Yeah, there's supposed to be somebody with some private land that's opening up. I don't think that's west. They're kind of like northeast of Richmond area. But I'm not sure how big his range is. I know you can shoot rifles and stuff out there, but I don't know if you'd be able to bring something like a 50 BMG out there or anything. You know? Matter of fact, Kevin Dixie is actually going to be coming down in November, or up, because he's now in Georgia. Yeah, so he's going to be coming up in November for some classes, and that's actually where he's putting the classes on is at that private range.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
yeah, I actually had him on a couple weeks ago. Kevin's a good guy, man. I've known Kevin for a little while. I think just as long as I've known you for. You know, we all met through Hank.
Yeah, Kevin's one of my good friends. We talk all the time. We hang out every time we get around, like an event or something like that. But the only thing about Kevin is always talking smack. So I gotta give him another hug. You know.
Oh yeah.
I put a post up a couple weeks ago, and I was tired when I took the picture, right? Because I was in the passenger seat of the vehicle. Yeah, Joker gonna say something like I look like Forrest Whitaker. I was like, that's hug worthy right there. So you're gonna get another
hug. So did you get to give him that hug that one time?
Yeah, I actually got it. Actually, somebody had the camera, and they thought they hit the record button. They didn't hit the record button, but Kevin admitted that I gave him the hug. It's just we didn't catch it on camera like I wanted it to be.
I missed out on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened at his event, his teach and learn event last year. Yep.
About the 5.45 by 39 being somewhere to the 5.56 in the ARs. So AK 40 or 74, would you prefer that over a 47?
Well, one thing about the AK platform is even when you got a racket, you still got to bring that hand under to rack it. And that's one thing that doesn't sit well with me, you know. And at the same time, I think I'm a simplistic type of guy. So when it comes to training, if I hear an AK, that's the direction I'm firing, like when we was behind enemy lines. So like I said, it's just personal preference. I just don't like the AK platform. I've shot them, but like I said, I just don't like them.
Steve D said his driver's license photo looks like Forrest Whitaker.
Hey, Steve, you need to link up with me. We're going to have to come up with a plan, and we both want to give Kevin Dixie that
hug. Let's see. AK-47 with a Fostech trigger is worth the money.
Yeah, like I said, if I go to the range with somebody, if they pull out the AK and if they insist that I shoot it, I will shoot it, and I'll give you my honest opinion on it. I think I'm pretty fair on the decisions I make on it. Even if it's personal, if I don't like it, I will honestly tell you, okay, it is a smooth trigger. It does this, it does this. I like this, I don't like this. But I'm not going to go into it like, oh, no, I totally hate it. Nope, not going to touch it. I'm not that guy.
You just don't like where the bolt is. That's what it is, really. That's your biggest pet peeve of it.
That's part of it. And like I said, the other thing is when I was in the military, you know, even when you look at it, opposing forces use the AK platform. We use the AR. So that was something that kind of set in my mind. But as far as functionality and everything, the whole coming under, that doesn't work well with me either versus the AR. I can just do this and then come back.
Right. See, for me, because I shoot lefty, so it's easier for me to do that.
It's specifically made for you.
I do happen to have an AK that shoots 5.56 rounds, so I can take it out with my AR and just make a day of it.
Yeah, so have fun with that while I sit over here and I struggle.
All right, let's see. Steve D says, what is your handgun of preference?
Yeah, I just wrote him back in the chats also, and I asked him, are you talking competition or EDC? If we're talking competition, I love the STI platform, the 1911 platform. So my competition handgun is the 2011 platform. It's nothing more than a 1911 slide on a double stack magazine. That's all a 2011 is, just a 1911 with a wider slide. I mean, a wider grip for the magazine. So competition, it will be the STI DVCL for me. Everyday carry, have to give that one up to the Walther PPQ.
Yeah, you're a big Walther guy. I know that.
Man, I'm trying to tell you, the science they put into that firearm, it is amazing, man. And even like when I first looked at it, when I got the Q5, I was more like, okay, I'll try it out and see what it really does. I don't think it's going to do what everybody's talking about. Man, as soon as I put it in my hand and I started firing, I was like, man, this thing is butter right here. And I just fell in love with it after the second pull, you know.
Wants to know, is it still chambered in 45?
Say again?
Is it still chambered in 45?
Which one?
The 2011?
Oh, no, I shoot 40. They do make them in 45, but my preference on that one is 40. And the only reason being is in competition shooting, the two classes as far as your ammunition is major and minor. If you're shooting minor, which is 9mm, you're chasing the major all day. So when you look at the point scoring system, it goes 5 points for Alpha, 3 points for Charlie, 2 points for 1 point for Delta, right? But for 40, it's one more point for the Charlie. You see what I'm saying? So it's like with the 9mm, you're chasing the 40 all day. So I only got the 40 to stay relevant as far as points go, you know. But my EDC is a 9mm.
So what you just said makes a video I just watched by a guy, Bald and Curious, make more sense to me, because he was going over, because he's a big competition shooter as well. So he was going over some reloads that he does, because he reloads his own ammunition for competition, and he was trying to figure out, should he go with the 40 or the 9mm. So now what you're saying with the 40, I guess that makes more sense if you go with the 40.
Right. Yeah, that's the only reason, because when I first got back into competition, because when I first started doing competitions back at Fort Benning, it was my Smith & Wesson that I was shooting. And I sent it off to get some custom work done to it, came back. It was just a race gun on a polymer frame, you know. I was shooting that, doing pretty good, and then work picked back up for me as far as being in the military. So I had to give up competition shooting until I retired. Then when I retired, I got back into it, and that's when I got the Q5. And then I'm sitting right here like, yeah, man, I beat this guy because, you know, these guys who was doing it for like 5, 10, 15 years, and I'm now keeping up with them as far as time-wise, but scoring-wise, they're blowing me out the water, right? Because like I said, that 9mm is chasing that 40 all day. And to do that in competition is the 40 recoils heavier than the 9. So the way the scoring is, it compensates for the recoil.
All right, I got you. Well, see, with his, because he was reloading them, trying to make them equal recoil.
Well, I don't think you can make it equal recoil.
You can equal. You know.
You can play with the measurements as far as your powder, and as far as scoring in competition shooting. By me shooting 40, the minimum power factor I can have is 165. 9mm, the minimum power factor is 125. You see what I'm saying? So how are you going to take, I don't even think in a 40 or a 45, if you try to put the same amount of power from a 9mm, I don't think it's enough pressure off the ignition of the powder to even push the bullet down the barrel. So you're going to possibly run into a squib load.
I think it would push the bullet down the barrel and shoot it just fine, but I don't think you would get the cycle.
Yeah, so that's the other thing that you can run into. But for me, you can play with the measurements. Like I was playing with it when I first got it. I thought I was loading everything properly. I was like, yeah, I'm in this now. I know what to do. the first time I went to a chrono, it was like 155. I was like, huh? What? How did that happen? So I had to go back and remeasure everything and make it work out for me. And then once it worked out for me, I'm good.
So you reload for your competition shooting as well?
Yes.
Right on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've gotten into reloading. I just do some 9mm. I'm not anything fancy at it yet, but I'll learn.
It's therapeutic, man, and it's all a science. It's all a science. Like for me, I do the basic formulas. You know what I'm saying? So I load what I know that would get me the power factor for what I need, right? And then of course I'll play with it. Then I either go up or down, whatever I need to do. So the last batch that I did this week, I found my rhythm. So I found what works for me perfect. So now I'm not going to touch the press. It's going to make chrono. I know it's going to make chrono, and that's what I'm going to run with.
So what kind of powder and stuff are you using? You have a particular brand of powder that you like to use or style of powder?
It's the powder that I use is called Sport Pistol. So the casings that I use is nothing more than you go to the range, you pick up the casings. That's all it is. I just reuse the same casings over and over again. Right. More than likely, there's a gun shop in Augusta called Shooters that I normally buy the brass from. So I'll buy a bucket of brass from them, come home, I'll clean it, and once it's clean, throw it in the press, and then I just go through my cycling.
Yeah, I just pick up whatever. I've been collecting brass from factory rounds that I've bought. I've just been collecting it out in my backyard till I finally got enough to start reloading again. I bought the press, or got the press a couple of years ago. I used it for a little while, and then something went wrong with it, and I just hadn't touched it for a while. But now that I got my room set up down here, I got everything all fixed back up with it, fine-tuned, and started reloading again. So now I got to get out there and actually try them out and see how they're working. I've been using the unique powder. It's like a disc. Yeah, they're like little disc.
I know a few people that use the unique powder, and they love it. It was just when I first got into reloading, my buddy, he was, in my opinion, he's already at pro status. He just have to refine little things, and he's running neck and neck with the top shooters right now. So what he was using was a powder called Vita Vori, and Vita Vori is pretty expensive. The powder that I got, Sport Pistol, it's supposed to be in comparison with Vita Vori. Okay. Just a little variance, what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay. So ever since I started reloading, that's the powder I've been using, was Sport Pistol. So, but I was going to go to Vita Vori route, but I was making that determination between the two. And I think when I went to go get Vita Vori, they was out of it. So then I ordered Sport Pistol, and I just stuck with Sport Pistol the whole time.
Right on. Yeah, like I said, I'm still new to it. I'm not new to it, but I'm new to it because, like I said, I loaded probably about 500 or 600 rounds when I first got the press, and I had a few issues with it here and there. But now that I loaded 100 rounds a few weeks ago, and I was having problems with the flaring on the case. Like it wasn't crimping back up right, so the casings were still flared out quite a bit, so they were getting stuck in the headspace. They weren't, the headspace wasn't right. They were getting stuck in the barrel, so I had to readjust everything on the press, and I did like a little plunk test in a barrel, and it's working just fine now. So now I just got to get them out there on the range and actually try them. But I've been putting 4.8 grains of powder in there. I'm running a 124 grain bullet.
For 9mm?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a little much, ain't it?
I don't know. Everything I read said you want about 4.8 to 5.2 grains.
Oh, man. I was thinking more like 4.2, 4. Yeah. 4.8. I'm running like 4.9 and a 40 right now.
Yeah.
So wow, that's a lot for a 9mm, my personal opinion.
Guess I'm making some P's.
What reloading book are you using?
I wasn't reusing a reloading book. I was just looking up on the internet and just seeing what everybody was saying.
Okay, what I'll do is if I can find the reloading book that I have, I'll take a few pictures of it and I'll text it to you so you can actually see what's going on with it. Or you can go to like Sportsman's Warehouse or any type of outdoor stop or store, and if they have reloading supplies, they should have a reloading book there. It wouldn't cost you no more than like $15. And it's pretty much all the powders and all the bullets, and it actually tells you about overall length and measurements that gives you like the range between the two, velocity breakdown and all that good stuff. So it's like an encyclopedia for bullets, especially on the reloading aspect.
Yeah, I know the overall length is supposed to be like 29.96 millimeters, something like that.
Yeah. Science, it's therapeutic once you really get into it also.
I mean, I got the little micrometer gauge, all that stuff. So I mean, I've been measuring them out, but I think it's I got to adjust because my press, I got a Lee Progressive 1000 turret press. It's got that little plate, the disc plate that slides back and forth with the powder charge. So when I first set it up, I set it up per the instructions, which I can't find those anymore. The instructions that came with the press. For what it said 9mm was, and I can't remember. I think back then it was putting 4.5 grains of powder in, with what they said was the setup. But something's going on. Like I said, I had to redo a whole lot of stuff on the press, and now I'm using 3 sizes bigger, and I'm only getting like 0.2 or 3 more grains of powder out of it. Because the chain that actually came with the reset part of it broke, so I had to kind of rig that up, and I used a like a bead chain to fix it. So I think that's part of the problem, and it's not really pushing the disc the way it's supposed to.
Look up on YouTube. There's a guy called the Ultimate Reloader. He actually talks about all the various types of presses, and I remember when I was first looking at getting a reloading press, I was looking at getting a Lee. And he did a comparison between the Lee and I think it was Hornady. And then he did it again with the Dillon press also. But I ended up getting the Dillon press. But if you look him up on YouTube, it's called the Ultimate Reloader.
Okay, yeah, they say the Dillons are like the Mac Daddy presses right there, the presses of all presses.
And it's only had 2 presses. Well, actually 3. So what I ended up doing was I had a Lee press, but it was a single one. So I had to do all the bullets at one time, like all the depriming. Then I had to put all the primers in at one time, and then I would actually measure out the powder and pour it in. And then the bullets I was seated in like with a one pull. That's how I learned how to reload.
Like a single stage press.
Yeah. And then I turned around and ended up buying a Hornady press, and I had it in a box, and I bought it when I was out in Louisiana, stationed out there, and that was back in 2016. And when I got here, and I was like, man, I should pull out that press and put it together. But I actually pulled it out, but I never took it out the box, right? And then my girlfriend, her son was getting into reloading, so I gave her dad the reloading press, so like he can make the bullets for her son, his grandson, and then too he can make the bullets for himself also, and then I ended up getting the Dillon press, so I don't even know if he actually put it together or not.
Yeah. All right, so there was a question out there. What are your thoughts on the EOTechs? Are they worth the money? Yes, they are really expensive for optics. They sure are.
Yeah, they are pricey, but I'm not a big fan of the EOTechs. What type of firearm are you putting it on, right? If you put it on an AR platform, I would actually say go with the variable optic. I'm a big fan of the variable optics. Or if you want to go ahead and do a red dot, That's something that can work if you're talking shorter range, a range span, just like the EOTech, so.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine. He was in the Marines, and he swears by EOTech. I guess that's what they were running when he was in the Marines on their rifles. So
one advantage I had when I was in the Army was we had all these different optics that came through. So of course, like I would try them out and say, okay, I don't like this one, but my team leader, he might like it. Right. So I like pass it off to my team leader. Don't tell him what I think, whatever. And then if he says he likes it, okay, he can keep it. So like I was running the ACOG when I was in the military, but I wish I would have known about primary arms when I was in the military. All right. I'm a big fan of primary arms only because of their reticles were made from like a military standpoint. So you can look through the reticle and it has all the measuring systems that you need, and it's easy, so like different points, holdovers and everything. It makes it so much easier,
Yeah, I've only experienced a few red dots myself. What do you think about red dots on pistols?
It's something that is where that's where the industry is going to right now, because you got to think the military is actually going more in that direction also. So when I was getting out, they was going more to optics on the rifles and optics on handguns. More police departments are going that route as well, because for whatever reason, instructors are finding it hard to train people with iron sights. It's easier to train them to look at a red dot and pull the trigger, which it is easier. Now, I've done it a few times. I like it, but my bread and butter has been iron sights because I actually understand iron sights. Will it make you faster on the glass? Maybe. But if you don't draw fire and you can't find a dot, because you got to remember, every time you pull it out, what's the first thing everybody does? They start hunting for that dot, and when they find it, oh, there you go, and then they just let loose and they never miss.
Yeah, because I notice a big difference between a red dot on a rifle versus a red dot on a pistol. Now, on a rifle, that dot is usually always in the middle or thereabouts. With that pistol, you put that sucker up there, that thing is dancing around like crazy.
Now, just like the different type of sights you have, they do have some that just sits there in the middle of the screen. It's just fixed there, But I'm not too familiar with the various companies as far as optics for handguns, But as far as optics for rifles, I'm all about like variable optics, as we said earlier.
All right, so let's see. Next one should be Judo for Patriots. Says there are a lot of peeps who need to know how to protect themselves, especially women.
Yeah, I'm totally agree with that. It doesn't necessarily have to be judo or jiu-jitsu. Whatever martial arts preference you decide to take, just make sure you practice it and make it work for you. We could sit right here and like if 6 of us did did jiu-jitsu, right? Your move might be an arm bar. Somebody else's move might be a rear naked choke. My move might be a triangle choke. Somebody else's move might be an arm lock. It's just a matter of how your body is going to be used as a weapon and what works more comfortable for you. So your game might be on top of the person, whereas my game is stronger on my back on the ground, and I just know how to move my body to work for me.
My Simeon brother's in the chat, and he says, "What are your thoughts on whiskey and dancing girls?"
Well, honestly speaking, I don't drink, but my preference of drink will be either water or orange juice. And every time I try to ask my girlfriend to dance for me, she just looks at me like I'm crazy. So maybe if I reach in my wallet and pull $1 out, she might do something for me. I don't know.
Yeah, she's gonna grab that dollar and turn around and walk away.
Yeah, that's it right there. Hey, good for you.
Thanks, I need that extra $1. Oh man. So uh, with the training, and you're saying more people nowadays, it's easier to train them with a pistol with a red dot.
Yeah, and even like if you put somebody who really doesn't know how to shoot a handgun, if you put a red dot and you tell them look for the dot, they look for the dot. Now just put the dot on target, right? That's easier for them to understand versus as, okay, I need you to line these sights up, right? I need them to like draw a straight line from the left of the rear sight to the right of the rear sight, equal height, equal light, right? Equal height, equal light.
Right.
Pull the trigger and only focus on the front sight post, right? Just that explanation alone, there's too much going on for somebody who never really shot before. But if I put a handgun with an optic on it or a red dot on it and say, okay, look for the dot. When you see the dot, pull the trigger.
Right.
That's so much easier to
target. Yeah.
so much easier to comprehend.
I definitely can see that it makes things a lot easier, but I mean, I think for an everyday carry, having a red dot on your firearm, on your pistol is not, it's not practical,
right?
Because if you get into a situation, I mean, are you going to be able to pull it out? Is that dot going to be turned on? Or do you got to turn it on, or
Yeah, but the whole thing is however you carry, you know what I'm saying? And I get what you're saying. A lot of them auto shut off, but now you got to worry about battery life, everyday carry. When you get home, when you take it off, did you turn it off? The next day the battery did, you know what I'm saying? So
right. Yeah, I don't see how, if that being practical for everyday carry. I think yes, it's fine for competition shooting and for maybe plinking around or whatever. But if you're serious about your everyday carry, I think that should definitely be iron sights. I mean, I learned how to shoot with iron sights, with the regular sights, and I wouldn't trade that for anything, because like you said, you don't know when you're going to have to rely on it, and if it's going to be the battery's dead or did it shut off? I mean, how can you carry that thing around every day and turn it on and just be like, oh yeah, and forget about it? That would be weighing in the back of my mind all day long.
You ever say time out? Let me. All right, time go.
Kind of like Robin Hood Men in Tights, where Dave Chappelle's like, time out, bad guys. I got to pump up.
Somebody asked a question in the chat, Keith Gregory.
Yeah.
And, he said, what about lasers on handguns? I've seen a lot of people come through classes, especially CWP classes, and they have lasers on their handguns. And you will not believe that a lot of people don't know you're supposed to zero that laser at a certain distance, right? And when I say false security, that's what it is. A lot of people think if they turn the laser on where it's touching, that's where the bullet's going to go. Well, if you didn't zero that laser for 50 feet, right, but you zeroed it for 15 feet, now you got to realize the math you got to do, just like if you was in a scope on a precision rifle, right? So you have to understand bullet trajectory to make it work.
It's a lot easier to co-witness a red dot than it is iron sights. Good tool to teach the concept.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But now that's for a rifle or a handgun. You know what I'm saying? Well, I know it works perfectly well for a rifle, right? That's, we call it the lollipop method. Versus on a handgun, like you said, the dot can move around, depending on how you're holding it and whatever the sun's doing with it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, every time I've picked up a handgun with a red dot sight on it, that sucker, I'm shaky, so that thing just does this the whole time I'm watching it.
let's see. The last time I went to SHOT Show, I shot. It was a race gun, an open race gun, like USPSA competition gun. And when the guy was like, he was like, just find the dot. And I'm literally sitting there looking for the dot. But when I found it, it felt like I had the gun pointing down like that, you know. But when I was pulling it, I was hitting still, you know.
Right.
But it just felt weird to me, you know, because it didn't feel like the gun was level.
It definitely takes some time to get used to. I just bought a Canik TP9 SFX and just put an optic on that one. And when I zeroed it in, because I'm right-handed with pistol anyway, because I'm left-eye dominant. That's why I shoot rifle lefty, because I'm left-eye dominant. So I kind of zeroed it in with my head cocked to the side a little bit. So if I keep myself straight and all squared up, I have to turn the gun to the side in order to find the red dot. So I'm like, yeah, I got to get it back out and re-zero it where I'm looking at it straight on. You know.
One thing I always tell people is if they are going to do the carry optics version, putting the sights on a handgun, dry fire. Dry fire will eliminate searching for the dot. You know, so the more you dry fire, the easier you're going to find, okay, I have to do this. And then once we said muscle memory earlier, that's what comes into play.
Yeah, that Canik, it's not going to be a carry gun for me. It's just more or less just a fun gun. And if I do get in a competition, I think that's what I'll use as a competition gun, you know, at least to get started with anyway. It is just 9mm, so.
I've seen a lot of people competition-wise shoot the Canik. I've shot it a few times, no complaints. I love the trigger on it. That trigger was very impressive on it. But when I said I was going to get one, I turned around and I took that money and I put it towards my competition gun now, the STI. So I never did get the Canik that I said I was going to get. I might end up getting one eventually, but.
Yeah, I mean, the TP9 SFX is really kind of built for competition. So to speak, more so than I think for a carry gun, because it's got a 6.5-inch barrel.
Wow.
I think it's 5.5 is what it is. Yeah, 5.5. So it's a good barrel length. It's a very, very big gun. It's very well balanced. I mean, when I first picked that thing up and put it in my hands, I was like, oh my God. You know, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh wow, this thing is, you know, now I was like, to me instantly, I was like, now I knew what all the raves about. So, you know, so I bought it and I was like, I brought it back and I started doing some shooting with it. And I was like, man, it is beautiful. It's because of the length of it, very, very low felt recoil. I mean, it's a nice shooting gun. And like you said, the trigger is just phenomenal, you know, for out of the box factory trigger. You know, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this thing is, and the reset is so quick. Boom, you know, just right on the money.
Have you ever shot like a CZ?
Yes, I've shot a CZ P07.
Man, the CZ that I shot, my buddy was using it for competition. Man, the trigger on that was so smooth. Man, I was impressed by that, and I was like, do I really want to buy one of these? But you know, but like I said, I ended up going with the STI.
Yeah. No, CZ is really nice. A lot of people rave about the CZ too. A friend of mine bought a CZ P07, and we were out at my buddy's place, and he's got a 200-yard range. So I took that thing, and I couldn't with my SIG because I got a SIG P320, and that's the gun I can shoot like no tomorrow with, because I've had that the longest and I've practiced with that one the most. But I took that CZ, and on my second shot, I hit that 200-yard target like it was nothing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
My buddy, I was at his property, and we was just doing some practicing one day. This was last year sometime frame. And he was like, yeah, man, try it and see what you think. Man, as soon as I shot it, like when I pulled it, I was expecting it, because the way the trigger looks, I'm expecting to pull from Texas back to South Carolina. But it was like as soon as I touched it, and all of a sudden it went off, and it kind of startled me, and I was like,
Right.
"Oh, that's pretty nice right there." And when I did it again because I knew where it was, and I was like, "I see how this can become addictive on the CZ platform."
Yeah. They're very, very nice.
Yeah. So I was
And
like, "Man,
it depends on the CZ you get as well, too, because like the PO7 is probably like their lowest version, and that's still a pretty sweet shooting gun. But as you step up in the CZ world, man, they just get nicer and nicer as you go along. One of them I'd really like to get would be a Shadow.
yeah, that's what his was. His was I don't think it was a Shadow 2. I think it was just the CZ Shadow, but it had like the orange grips, yellow grips, or whatever they call it. Whatever the colors, I don't know what the colors mean, on the CZ platform. But his were like the orange, yellow grips. But that trigger was impressive.
Kingpin knows all about CZs.
Somebody would, right?
Well, we got a group of guys. I don't know if you ever heard of the Crazy Scotsman.
Yes.
He's oh man, you talk CZs with him, he can tell you some stuff about CZ, man. he is a CZ fan all the way.
I'm gonna hit him up about that, just about the colors of those grips.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. I mean, I'd love to. Shit, I'd love to get anything that goes pew pew pew. I don't care if it's good, bad, or indifferent. To me, I love them all. I've shot some of the worst things you could ever think of, but I still loved it, man, just because it goes pew pew pew.
I wish I would have known. I knew of the 1911 platform when I was younger. I just never dove into it because it was easier for I have the SPO1 Omega and the Shadow and Blue. Yeah. It was easier for me to deal with what was in play at that time. So earlier it was like, what was it? Glock was the weapon of choice then. And then Smith and Wesson, they did the M&P version, which was based off the Glock platform. So it was easier for me to do that versus the 1911. But now that I got 2011 and I'm learning about it, and my buddy, he actually broke it down for me and said, this is nothing more than a 1911. Are you serious? And then he pulled out his 1911 and compared the two. And I was like, holy cow, man, I just learned something new. But I wish I would have started shooting the 1911 platform way sooner in life,
Yeah, they are nice, man. I'll tell you, I've shot quite a few different versions of them. My brother-in-law has a Springfield range officer 1911. That thing's a real sweet shooting gun. I've tried the Sig Sauers, the Kimbers. I mean, even the Rock Island ones. I mean, you pick those up for a couple $100 and they still shoot very nice. Very, very nice.
I had a friend of mine. He actually bought a Rock Island 1911. And he changed out all the internal parts of it. He was like, I'm just going to make it better. And I was like, okay. I never knew what came of that project, like ever since I seen him afterwards. I never asked him about it. So, but I mean, he still got all his fingers and everything. So that's the plus.
So it must be okay, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got a friend who's got, I think his is a 40 caliber. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think his is a 40 caliber with the Rock Island 1911. And I mean, we shoot that a lot when we're out of his place, and I think it's just fine. And his is all factory. He didn't change nothing on it.
Right.
I don't see any issues with it. People get really, really stuck up on and hung up on names, I think is really what it is for a lot of things.
Yeah, and I've always said this too. Back in the 80s, Glock had the perfect marketing campaign because even when you think about it today, for people who are not into firearms, if you ask them anything about a firearm, the first thing they're going to say is Glock because that's what they see in the movies, and a lot of songs actually talk about the Glock, So it is a platform that withstood its test of time. But now you can't take anything away from Glock, because Glock is like Timex. It will take a licking, but keep on ticking.
Right.
You know? So
they sure do. I know a lot of people who are big into Glocks. I can shoot well with a Glock. I can hit the target every time, nice tight groups, but I just can't stand the way that thing feels in my hand. I don't like it. It's not comfortable. It digs in right here, and it bothers the hell out of me.
I say the same thing with the Glock, just the angle of the grip, right? After so many rounds, man, my wrist starts hurting and everything.
Yeah.
But when I was in the military, I did the Schutzensneer Award, the German Marksmanship Award. It's called the Schutzensneer. I did that with the Glock over in Germany. So that was my first time shooting a Glock. And then every time I shot a Glock after that, it's always been like somebody had one and said, "Hey, try it out." I try it out and like, yeah, okay, cool. Never had anything against it. It was just like the grip. And after so many rounds, my wrist starts hurting, right? And I never really paid attention to it until somebody brought it to my attention. It could be the angle of the gun and how you're using the sights, right? And your compensation is almost like you're playing basketball, but you're playing on the side of your foot. You know what I'm saying? Now your foot is going to hurt because you're only on the side of it and you're not using all the muscles as you're supposed to.
Exactly.
You know? So
yeah,
could be it.
Yeah, I don't really feel like it's a very ergonomic feel of that grip as far as it goes. It's got a really weird shape to it, and I don't like it. But that trigger guard is really what gets me the most. I got these weirdly fat knuckles, and it just cuts into me. Well, see, now my buddy Christian Gress, he came up with a couple of his Polymer 80 builds, and I didn't have a problem with those ones at all. The grip angle is a little different. The undercut is a lot deeper, so they were nicer. And I didn't mind shooting those at all. I mean, I didn't mind holding on to them. They were a lot more comfortable in my hand. So.
I never owned a Glock, so. But I have gotten a lot of invites to go to the Glock factory. So I'm going down to Georgia here in 2 weeks. So I might set it up for me to take that tour when I'm down there.
I have a Gen 3 G34 because it's the best. I have a 1911 because of Magnum PI. I don't know if it's the best, but they definitely are good. I'm not going to take anything away from Glock. I mean, they're not the greatest looking guns either, and every single one of them looks identical, just different sizes.
You know when they might change the color next time around. We never know.
Yeah.
Once again, you got to look at their strategy too. If it ain't broke, why fix it?
Right, exactly. And I think that's why you've seen a lot of the guys come up with the P80s and the polymer different grips and everything because, maybe they like the Glock platform but just don't like the way it feels in their hands. So they wanted to come up with another way to make it better, at least for them, or for anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So really like the Glock 19X. That's the one that came out with the P320, right? In the competition.
I think the 19X is the compact version.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing about Glock I don't understand is the numbers. How you got the Glock 34, then the Glock 19, and what does the numbers mean? But I'm pretty sure it's like their version of the Glock that came out. But for me, because I don't follow Glock, those numbers don't mean anything to me. I got to look at it to say yay or nay.
Right. Yeah, see, I only know like the Glock 19 and the Glock 17 because that's all I ever hear about.
One thing I know is Glock. It's a company that makes guns.
Right. To me, it's the G-Lock.
Yeah. My buddy, man, he swears by it. Like he will fight you to the death if you talk anything about Glock. All right. Sometimes I just get them riled up just to hear them rant and watching them get fired up. It's funny to me. So like, yeah. What about this? No, man, I'm trying to tell you, this is what you need. And it just goes from there.
Yeah, I worked with a guy that was very similar to that, and I mean, he's a Glock fanboy all the way, man. Oh, I got this Glock. I had this gun once, and I didn't like it. Oh man, I can't shoot nothing but a Glock, and I'm just like, whatever, man. You put a gun in my hands, I'm gonna shoot it. I don't care.
Hey, that's how I look at it. As long as that trigger allows me to go bang, I'm all for it.
Right. I mean, I got revolvers, man. You name it. So I like shooting them all.
Let me ask you this question right here, and this is a question I wanted to ask earlier, and it totally slipped my mind.
All right.
So you remember a couple years ago, there was a lot of people, oh, we don't need this, we don't need that, as far as firearms go, right? So, oh, these shootings, this is why we don't need this, and people was jumping on that bandwagon, as far as dissolving what is supposed to be what we know today. So how many of those same people that were against firearms a few years ago you think were in the masses of buying all the new firearm owners as of recently?
Probably at least 50% or better.
Yeah, I would actually say, I won't say 50%, but I will give it about 35-40%,
But with that being said, I don't think they're the ones that have created the ammo shortage like people are blaming it on.
No. Now, I honestly believe the government bought up all the ammo. That's what I believe.
Yeah, that and the pre-existing gun guys, because a lot of them are always talking about being prepared, and I know a lot of guys that go out to the store and just buy ammo because they got money. And they seen it on the shelf. And I've heard a lot of stories from gun guys that have been gun guys for a long time that are like, yep, every time I go to the store, I'm looking for ammo, especially right now, and I'll buy up everything they have or what I can of it. It's like, you guys are the ones causing the problem. It's like the whole deal with the toilet paper. And then everybody's blaming it on the new gun owners.
Yeah, I never could understand the toilet paper. That's the part that killed me. So I was like, oh my goodness. Because my whole thing is, if I run out of toilet paper, I'm jumping in the shower.
Right. You got to shower. Go out back and use the hose, man. Come on.
Exactly. That's how I look at it. But I do believe like the shortage of ammo has happened because, did you know the post office had its own police force? Yeah, I mean, I just found this out like a couple of weeks ago, and I was reading some article, and it was talking about the post office had its own police force.
I know the IRS does also.
Yeah, the IRS does, and it's one more agency that has it also. But it was like it was all in this article because it said the IRS in that same article, and it was like, wow, really? I never thought of that, And I believe those are the agencies that are buying up all the ammo.
Right. Probably so.
Yeah, that's what I believe.
I bet you there's a good portion of them buying them up because of everything that's going on. They want to be prepared just like anybody else wants to be prepared, But to my point, like I'm saying, I've heard all the stories and everybody's blaming it on the surge of new gun owners.
That's the easier way to put it.
Right. That's just doing this instead of doing this. To me, that's what I think. Because I'm like, if you really sit back and think about it, these people, this is their first time buying a gun. Most of them have been against guns all their lives, but now all of a sudden realize, okay, well, this is what the Second Amendment's about. And because of everything that's happening in this country, it's giving them a little piece of security. So yes, they're buying a gun, but they're buying maybe a box or two of ammo because they don't ever have an intent on using that firearm for anything. But they now have this sense of security, a false sense of security, because they own a firearm.
Well, even if you were to get into a gunfight, it's only going to last, 7, 12 seconds?
Right.
It's not like going to be a 2-hour drawn out method,
Right.
Oh, nice sound effect. You heard that. But the other side of it is it's better to have it and not need it versus, when you do need it, you don't have it.
Right.
No,
I agree with that 200%, all the way. But when it comes down to it, a lot of these people, I think they're just buying it for, again, it's a false sense of security, because they're buying this thing and they're only keeping it at their house. They're not carrying it with them every day. They're not learning how to use it. They're not going out and practicing with it. They're just like, okay, well, if this comes to my house, I have a gun and I'll be able to scare people away, whatever.
Well, let's look at it from both sides of the fence. Why are people actually going out buying all these firearms right now? And I honestly believe that when COVID had happened and people wasn't working, how many of those businesses started laying people off? Not people that was working 9 to 5, people that was doing like not even the side hustle, but their job was based off of their performance. So now they're not working. You got to feed the family. So what's your choices then? Is either steal from the store or steal from the neighbor. Right. And I think when it's because I know around here, the crime uptick around about the April, May timeframe, it picked up for about a month. And then all these houses getting broken into, now people are like, okay, I need to protect myself and the family. Right. And how many people were against firearms, as we stated earlier, but now they actually see, because they put it out here at one point in time, if you call 911, they will ask you, is it an emergency? And they won't come out unless it's an emergency.
Right.
And that kind of opened up people's minds a little bit, like, oh, hold on. 911, you're supposed to be here. Now they realize that police officers are not there to protect you.
Right, right.
So
yeah, especially because of the whole, COVID rule about social distancing and everything. That's why they were asking, is this an absolute emergency? Because we don't want to send our officers out there to possibly get infected,
Yep. So now, even when you turn around and you look at it, that case that, what's that city, Kenosha?
Yep.
Where craziness is going on at. Mm-hmm. Now, how did that get out of hand? And what was the police involvement to allow it to get out of hand? Right? Because I've never followed it. Only thing I followed about Kenosha is the teenager guy killed somebody or shot somebody.
Two people died, and one guy got shot in his bicep and lost 90% of his bicep or something like that.
So I seen that on social media feeds. I didn't really research it or anything. I know police were out there, but it was there was the referees on the sideline. It was allowing the madness to happen, but they wasn't intervening. So I was even more like, okay, why and what's actually going on? But like I said, I never really researched it or anything. I've seen it a time or two. So I'm actually ignorant to what's going on out there right now, other than what I know, what I just told you.
Well, what's going on out there right now, and I can tell you, and I bet you there's a lot of people that will concur with it, because if you notice the areas that these places are happening in, they're all Democrat-run areas, and their politics are allowing this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like now, this young kid who defended himself in that instance, he's being looked at as the monster, but the aggressors are looking at as being peaceful people, So they were chasing him and trying to attack him.
Yeah, the guy who got his bicep shot off, isn't he the one that had a handgun?
He had a Glock, yeah.
Yeah.
And he walked up like this because he knew that the kid had a gun. He walked up like this, and then he was gonna start pointing it at him, he even said it too when he was in the hospital after he got shot and he was in the hospital. He's like, I should have just killed that kid.
Self-defense is self-defense.
Right. And apparently he's already a felon, so he's not even supposed to have a firearm. But now he's looked at amongst a certain group of people as a victim.
Political agenda.
He's even playing the victim role at this point right now too, because it's getting fed off of, and he's feeding into it, and it's ridiculous. But the whole thing comes down to this political agenda, like you said, of division. They're trying to divide the country because for some reason the Democrats think that, this is my opinion, that they think that by all this happening and by them sympathizing with these people who are causing all the chaos, that they're going to gain all their votes. You think these people that are causing this chaos are actually going out and voting?
Nope.
I can guarantee 99% of them aren't even registered to vote, and probably will never ever in their lives register to vote.
It doesn't fit their agenda, and they don't know what's going on with it. So why do it?
Exactly. And it's become so overblown and out of hand. It's ridiculous. But that party at the same time is kind of eating itself from the inside out. But now, because they're allowing this to go on and happen, and it's been going on for so long now, it's been way over 100 days. I can't exactly remember how many days it's been, but I know it's beyond 100 days. That good law-abiding citizens and other people are really getting frustrated with it, and now they're starting to fight back or go out and get themselves mixed up in the chaos. I seen a video, Mr. Guns and Gear put it out on his B channel, where there was a group of patriots carrying American flags. I don't know where it happened at, but they were going through, and the Antifa people started mouthing off to them, and they were doing their Antifa thing, destroying stuff or whatever, and these people were trying to stop them, and they were getting on them, and the police arrested them and let the Antifa people go about their business. About
how you tell the story, right?
All right. I'm just like, all right, well, what's going on? I understand everybody has a job to do and everything else. That's just like with the discussion of, just like with the police, okay, and the military. A lot of people think that if it comes down to a civil war in this country, that, automatically the military, everybody in the military is going to be on our side. A lot of the police are going to be on our side if we're fighting against a tyrannical government. Mm-hmm. But I don't find that to be true, right?
Not true at all.
Right. I don't. We had a friend over the other day, and he's ex-Marine, and I asked him. I said, the veterans, I guarantee probably a good 70% of veterans that are able-bodied will come out and be on the side of we the people, but the percentage of the active military will be following orders, because that's what they're taught to do. Follow orders. Same thing with police. When it comes down to it, it's the same thing that goes on with these red flag laws. They have a job to do, and if they're told to do it, they're going to do it, whether they feel good about it or not.
Yeah, well, even if they don't feel good about it, what is it going to come down to is, what about the officer or the soldier who's struggling, and they really do have a real concern about doing what they're ordered to do?
Right.
Now, are they going to sacrifice feeding the wife, husband, or children, for an order, or are they going to follow their moral compass? It's that toss and turn method going on right there.
Right. And the only ones that will break away, like you said, on that moral compass will be the ones that truly believe that it's wrong, and they'll make that decision because they'll realize, hey, after this is all said and done, or even during the whole thing, because I mean, you think while you're fighting and going on that these political people or whoever, the government, the tyrannical government in charge, is actually giving a shit about you? You know what I mean? You're just a small peon. You're a pawn in their game. That's it. So, so they could care less which way you go.
Yeah. Always comes back to the dollar, though. That's what it always comes back to.
So, yeah, it's a crazy, mixed up world, man.
Yeah, it is. But it's either way you look at it, it's you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's what it always sums it up to be.
Right. Yeah. It's like they say, that catch-22 situation. If you're stuck in the middle, it's up to you to figure out which way you want to go. So
Study long, study wrong.
Let's he say? Steve D says, this all just makes me sad. I'm first generation American, and in my lifetime, this country has lost its way. I have faith we will come together.
Yeah, I saw that when we was in the chats, and I actually responded to him as well. And my reply was, I think he is correct, but it will be today's children that will bring the nation back together.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna take. I think because this country is still so young, we have more of an opportunity to fall down right now than we ever did before. And out of the fire and from the ashes, there can be brought new life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, like you said, it'll be today's children that will learn from this lesson. If that's something that does happen and we fall down or whatever, that later on they can pick everything back up and change it in the future, because hopefully they will learn from a lesson. Now, it's kind of hard to learn from these lessons. We've had all these lessons for a very long time, but for some reason they're not being taught to our children either. So,
well, history. You know what I'm saying? It's always going to go back to the agenda of what benefits me the best for monetary gain or advantage.
Right. Yep, you're right about that. Yep. So, all right, we're at the 2-hour mark. I have to go because I got another podcast that I'm joining in on, and it's a discussion about the next civil war in America. So if there is a second civil war, not the next, like it's going to happen, but the what if, type of scenario. So that's over on John Crump's channel. I don't know if you know John Crump.
Yeah, I know who John is. Yeah. Not personally, but I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
Right. So I've been talking to John for a while. He's a really good guy. So that's what he invited me tonight, and I was like, oh man, I'm probably going to be a couple minutes late.
That's it right there. Sounds like it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. So for everybody who's watching now, hop on over to John Crump's channel and check it out, because that's where I'm heading. It should be an interesting conversation. When he brought it up to me, the idea of it, I was all for it. So, I was like, yeah, I'm jumping in, but you're going to have to excuse my tardiness.
So now, when you just go to YouTube and just type in John Crump, or does his channel actually have a specific name?
It's just John Crump. That's his channel.
There you go, right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hop off of here, go grab me something to eat, because like I said, I just got off the road from North Carolina and then jumped in with you. So I'm going to go eat right quick, take a shower, and I'll probably turn it on when I'm laying in bed, just relaxing.
Well, Mike, I got to thank you. I appreciate you a lot, man. I thank you for coming on tonight. I know you had a busy day, and this was kind of almost a last-minute thing. I know we've been talking for a little while about getting you on here. We've both been kind of busy. Steve D just said he subbed over to you.
Hey, I appreciate that, Steve.
So if you want to give everybody, let everybody know where you're at so they can come follow you, find you, whatever.
Okay. If you actually utilize Facebook, just do a search for M-W Tactical. If you're on Instagram, do a search for @Munitions Weapons Tactical. And if you can't remember either one of those two, just go to the website, www.m-wtactical.com, and all that information and then some are on the website.
Right on. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Till next time, have fun.
Y'all take care. Thanks again.
All right, hang on right there for a minute.